The Rookie Bear is a pretty decent cartoon. This is an MGM cartoon from 1941, directed by Rudolf Ising and written by Julian Harmon. And we have a really great voice cast, including Pinto Colvig, who's credited as the voice of Barney Bear's shoes, which I love. Rudolf Ising voices Barney Bear. And this, of course, follows Barney Bear as he is drafted into the army and goes through the early stages of being in the army and the basic training. The narrative has actually got a really good structure because it's done as if Strife magazine was reporting on this bear's training, which I think is a pretty interesting way of doing it. It just gives it another dimension. It would have worked just as well if it had just been about the bear going through training, but bringing that in gives it something a little bit extra. Obviously, this was released in 1941, so it's definitely something that people would be able to relate to, and there's obviously a sense of, is it propaganda? It's difficult to always judge with these because a lot of the cartoons at the time were showing that army training was sometimes ludicrous or intense, or, sergeants were really nasty. But at the same time, it's still planting the idea in people's heads about the war. Not not that they were unaware of it, but it's making them think about drafting, about training, of what it entails, of what to expect. So it's kind of very much questioning what they're trying to achieve, and it's always difficult to try and work that out. Are they saying go and enlist, or are they saying the army training is, something that we can create a comedic cartoon out of? But I think most of the humour, and it is quite funny, it's not, laugh out loud, side splitting funny, but most of the merriment, is that the right word? That's definitely not the word I'm looking for. The things that I liked about it mostly come from the personality of the bear. I think he's a really great character. It actually starts off with him sleeping. He's, of course, hibernating, and then gets the letter saying he's been drafted and joins the army, and it definitely doesn't seem like he fits in. And I think that that's probably something that's quite relatable to a lot of people at this time. Obviously, I wasn't there, I don't know, but I feel like, there are the people who are definitely wanting to join the army and they're happy to be drafted, and they are kind of the exemplary army man mostly being men, of course. Whereas I imagine there were a lot of people who were drafted who didn't really feel like they fitted in very well. And I think this can potentially represent that as Barney goes through the various stages. What I will say is there's an amazing attention to detail. Usually with these cartoons, there are a lot of similar cartoons of people being drafted, usually animals of some kind, and they're usually just set outdoors with brownish, greenish landscapes and not a lot of detail. But this one we have, racks of clothing and all kinds of little things here and there, that the attention to detail in the animation is absolutely brilliant. And that's something that I think is definitely a credit to the cartoon and sets it apart from a lot of similar ones. That's not to say it's the best of the best, but I think the attention to detail is great. The character of Barney is really likable. I think he worked very well as a character. The narrative structure was brilliant and just gave a little bit something extra. It doesn't make me want to join the army, but that aside, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very effectively done, and quite a sweet story in terms of Barney just kind of going along with things and not necessarily being fully aware of everything that's going on around him. He was just a really likable character. I really enjoyed the character of Barney. I don't know if this is the only time he appears in MGM cartoons. I believe it's certainly the first time I've seen him. But if he ever appears again, I wouldn't mind that. The Rookie Bear is definitely one that I recommend.